Picture this, it's the late 1940s, your guests are coming over, the table is set and you want to serve something that feels refined without living in the kitchen all night. And that's where chicken a la king comes in. Creamy chicken, elegant, comforting. Now almost everyone thinks they know this dish, but very few have actually tasted it the way it was meant to be. No garlic, no cheese, no modern panic. Just a smooth, balanced classic that once ruled hotel menus and dinner tables alike. And once you've had it this way, the modern versions suddenly feel very confused. Hello my friends and fellow Apollonians, welcome back to Apaulo Diner. I'm your host Apollo Jupiter, and today we're making one of the most misunderstood classics of mid-century American cooking. Chicken a la king. A creamy chicken dish that quietly became a staple of American hotel dining in the 40s and 50s. But it was never meant to be bold or flashy, just smooth, elegant, and not trying to show off. Let's get started! Alright, let's start with the chicken. This recipe comfortably serves 3 to 4 people when you serve it with rice or in a puff pastry shell. Proper dinner portions, not polite nibbles. So for this, we're using 2 cups or 300 to 350 grams of chicken. Traditionally, the chicken would be poached. But what I like to do here is dice the chicken into bite-sized pieces before cooking. It's quicker, it cooks more evenly, and it keeps things nicely under control, which is exactly what mid-century cooks were after. And on top of that, you don't burn your hands trying to cut it after it's been in hot water. Once that's done, bring some water to a boil, salt it lightly, and in goes our chicken. Nothing boiling wildly, nothing dramatic, just a calm simmer until the pieces are cooked through and still tender. Depending on the size of your dice, it usually takes about 2 minutes. This is one of those rare moments where chicken cooks faster than you expect. Poaching was very typical in the 40s and 50s. It was predictable, efficient, and ideal for dishes like this, especially in hotel kitchens where surprises were very much unwelcome. Guess maybe chicken? Absolutely not. And notice what we're not doing yet. No paprika powder, no seasoning beyond that light salt in the water. Chicken a la king builds its flavor in layers. The sauce will take care of the rest. Once the chicken is done, we drain it and set it aside. You've done your part, you may now rest. And with that behaving nicely on the sidelines, we can move on to the part that really made chicken a la king famous. And that is the sauce. This is where chicken a la king really becomes itself. We'll start by melting 4 tablespoons or about 55 grams of butter in a saucepan over medium-low heat. Definitely nothing too hot, we're looking for melted and relaxed, not sizzling with ambition. Once the butter is melted, we whisk in 4 tablespoons or about 30 grams of flour. Now we slow things down just a touch and let it gently cook for about 2 minutes. We don't want browning or much color here. If it starts turning too brown, it's already getting ideas that don't belong. Next thing you know, it's applying for a crust. What we're after is a relatively pale, smooth roux, the kind that thickens quietly and behaves itself. That was very much the mid-century hotel approach. Control first, drama never. This is a very well-mannered sauce in training. And this is a good moment for a bit of background. Chicken a la king most likely came out of American hotel dining around the turn of the 20th century, often linked to New York and places like Delmonico's. Another frequently mentioned story points to the Brighton Beach Hotel, where it may have been created by chef George Greenwald for the hotel's owner, a man named King. There are a few versions of the story and no one can say for certain which one is the original, but they all agree on one thing. It wasn't royal food. It was hotel food, elegant, reliable, designed to be served to guests without surprises, which explains this sauce perfectly. So once the roux smells lightly nutty but stays pale, we're right where we want to be. And ready for the next step. Now we move on to the liquids. And this is where the sauce starts to feel like something. First, we slowly whisk in 1.5 cups or about 360 milliliters of chicken broth. And slowly really is the word here. Bit by bit, whisking constantly. We're inviting the broth in, not throwing it at the pan. If you dump it in all at once, the sauce will remember. Let it thicken gradually. As it heats up, the roux does its job and everything comes together into a smooth, cohesive sauce. This is one of those moments where patience pays off immediately. Rush it and you get lumps. Lumps are just impatience made visible. Once the sauce is smooth and gently simmering, this is the moment for small but very aircrack touch. We add 1 teaspoon or about 5 milliliters of dry sherry or cognac. This step is optional but very much in character for the time. Let it cook gently for about 30 seconds, just enough for the alcohol to cook off and leave behind a subtle depth. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet layer settling into the sauce. Now we add half a cup or about 120 milliliters of cream. And this is where chicken a la king really leads into its reputation. In the 40s and 50s, evaporated milk was also very commonly used here, especially in hotel and home kitchens alike. It was practical, reliable, and gave exactly the kind of creaminess this dish was known for. So if that's what you have on hand, you're still very much on the right track. Now we let the sauce gently warm through, not boiling, not bubbling aggressively, just enough heat for everything to settle into a smooth, velvety consistency. And be careful not to dry it out. So really go to a low heat here. At this point, it should coat the back of a spoon nicely. Creamy, pale, and calm. If it feels a bit understated, that's a good sign. This dish never wanted to shout. And once the sauce looks and feels right, we're ready for the next layer. Time to give the sauce some structure. Now we bring in the vegetables and give everything its basic seasoning. So first, the mushrooms. We add half a cup or about 60 grams thinly sliced. Mushrooms were a natural choice here. They add depth and a gentle savory note without changing the character of the sauce too much. Mushrooms are very cooperative in cream sauces, which is why they were invited. We let them cook gently for about 5 to 7 minutes, just until they soften. And remember, no aggressive boiling or bubbling, no browning, no sauteing theatrics. They're here to blend in, not to make an entrance. Next up, some green bell pepper. A quarter cup or about 35 grams finely diced. This was very typical for mid-century chicken a la king. It adds a bit of freshness and a soft crunch without turning the dish into something else. We let that cook along for a few minutes as well, just until tender. And now comes an ingredient that really marks this as authentic chicken a la king. The pimento. We add 2 tablespoons or about 30 grams chopped. If you can't find pimento, no worries. It's essentially pickled red bell pepper in vinegar. That's usually available just about everywhere. Pimento isn't just garnish, and it's not optional if you care about authenticity. It brings mild sweetness, gentle color, and that unmistakable mid-century look. This is the ingredient that makes people say, "Ah, that dish." Once the vegetables are in, we season the sauce lightly with salt and white pepper to taste, just enough to wake things up. If you like, this is also the moment for a tiny pinch of nutmeg. It's optional, but very much in character for the period. And tiny really does mean tiny. It should be a whisper, not a statement. At this point, the sauce should be creamy, balanced, and calm, with everything settled nicely into place. Now that the vegetables are cooked and the seasoning is right, we are finally ready for the last delicate step. The egg yolks. This is what gives chicken a la king its final velvety polish. So in a small bowl, we whisk together 2 egg yolks with 1 to 2 teaspoons or about 5 to 10 milliliters of lemon juice. This isn't about making the sauce taste lemony, it's just there to lift the richness and give the yolks a little insurance not to curdle later on. But before the yolks go anywhere near the saucepan, we need to temper them. Right now, the yolks just need a moment to get acquainted.
Greetings.
So we take a spoon of our hot sauce and slowly whisk it into the yolks. Then another. The yolks are sensitive. Let's be polite. This step is simply about bringing the temperature up gently. No rushing. Once the yolks are warm and fully blended, we stir that mixture back into the saucepan. From here on, the heat stays low. Again, no boiling, no bubbling. Just gentle warmth, or you might end up with an accidental scrambled egg. As the sauce heats, it thickens ever so slightly and becomes beautifully smooth and velvety. Still pale, still calm. And now, we bring the chicken back in. It waited long enough. Add the poached chicken and fold it gently through the sauce, just until everything is warmed through. At this point, give it a final taste. Adjust the seasoning if needed, carefully. The flavor should be delicate, balanced, and quietly elegant. And that's authentic chicken a la king for you. Exactly as it was meant to be back in the day. Creamy, refined, and perfectly behaved. And now the finishing touches. Traditionally, chicken a la king was served over buttered toast points, plain white parboiled rice, or in puff pastry shells. Nothing complicated, nothing distracting. Just something that lets the sauce do its job. Toast points were especially popular in hotel dining rooms, crisp, simple, and very good at soaking up the sauce. Rice was the everyday option, and pastry shells were for when company was coming over and you wanted things to feel a little more dressed up. They were like the evening gowns of the 1950s dinner party, reserved for the guests who mattered. However you serve it, keep the garnish minimal. Maybe a small sprinkle or a piece of parsley, but even that is optional. This dish doesn't really need decoration. It already knows who it is. Chicken a la king wasn't created to impress with bold flavors or clever tricks. It was designed to be elegant, reliable, and satisfying. The kind of dish that made guests feel well taken care of. Trends came and went, this dish stayed. Now for the most important part. Let's have a taste. So good. Creamy, balanced, comforting. Nothing is fighting for attention. Everything exactly where it should be. And the best part, you can do all of this in about 30 minutes. And there we have it, chicken a la king, a calm, elegant classic that still works just as well today. If you enjoyed this little trip to the past, please give this video a like and subscribe for more classic recipes, old techniques, and a bit of mid-century kitchen charm. It really helps the channel. And if you'd like to continue the journey, you'll find some more wonderful content right here. Thank you for spending some time with me in the kitchen today. Take care, enjoy your cooking, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.